So back in the old days, before the gig economy arrived, tipping was a fairly straightforward arrangement. Workers in the service industry made a salary, a low salary, but still a salary. And then in return for a job well done, you added to their base pay with tips. The system seemed to have the right incentives built in. The best employees in the right places could do pretty well, waiters, for example. But what if you took away the salary and left the lowest paid workers in our society with only their tips? What if the richest people in America were doing that right now and keeping it secret? Well, it's actually happened, and you won't be surprised it's the billionaires of Silicon Valley who did it. Consider Instacart. It's a company that lets you order your groceries online. Instacart is already worth about $7 billion. But in an effort to boost profits, the company changed the way it pays its employees. Starting late last year, every driver at Instacart was guaranteed to make a minimum of $10 for every delivery. That's the good news. The bad news is the company used drivers' tips to meet the minimum. In other words, the sanctimonious moguls who run that company shifted their payroll costs to the customer and shafted their own employees in the process. In one case, a worker who was tipped $10 for a delivery received only $10.80 in total compensation. That's a pretty good deal for Instacart. 80 cents per delivery is definitely below the minimum wage. In another case cited by the New York Times, 2 Instacart workers earned $10 each for a delivery, even though one got a $6 tip and the other got a $4 tip. In other words, a bigger tip meant less base pay. If you did a better job for the customer, the Stanford grads who run Instacart just took more money from you, because that meant more money for them. When this policy came to light last week, Instacart's CEO acted embarrassed and chastened and promised to stop doing it. But it really doesn't matter, because exploitation is now the standard in the brave new economy the donor class has created. Almost all gig economy workers are contract employees. That means they don't get health insurance. They don't make enough to support themselves. Taxpayers make up the difference with social programs. And that's one of the reasons your taxes keep going up, so that the hipsters who run Uber can afford to buy another compound in Hawaii and write another check to the DCCC. That's the deal. It's a ripoff, and voters know it, and that's why so many of them suddenly seem so radical. And if you keep it up, sensible people will become socialists, and if you keep it up long enough, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be president of the country. That will happen. So can Congress do anything about billion-dollar companies ripping off their employees? Congressman Khanna is a Democrat who represents Silicon Valley. He's also an Instacart customer and has been on these issues for quite some time, and we're happy that he's here tonight. Congressman, thank you very much for coming on. So did I misstate the way this worked?
It's outrageous. I mean, it's outrageous. It's a $7 billion company. They're going to IPO. And they're basically having wage theft. They're stealing the tips that should go to the employees to lower their base pay. Here's what's outrageous also, because I've used Instacart. You know, the default tip is 5%. I mean, who tips 5%? Usually you want to tip 10 or 15%. Yeah. So they actually have a lower default tip because they don't want to make it seem like customers should pay more. And then if you do pay more, they're taking that tip away. I mean, it's just a scam.
You've been one of the only people in the Congress to press an issue, and I'm grateful that you have, that I think is really important, where these companies basically send to the taxpayer a lot of their labor costs. They don't pay their employees enough. They don't even admit they are employees. And then the public takes up the slack in the form of social programs. Have you made any headway in getting the companies to pay for that?
Well, we had the Stop Bezos Act, because Amazon was doing this, and we were paying for food stamps, and we're paying for a lot of the social programs. And here, the richest company in the world wasn't paying a $15 minimum wage. In response to that, Bernie Sanders and I had that legislation. Bezos announced a $15 minimum wage, so they felt some pressure and did raise wages. That said, there's a long way to go. I mean, these are mostly employees, and as you point out, they're being treated as independent contractors. And here's the point. The digital revolution is creating an extraordinary amount of wealth. They can afford to make sure that there's a middle class. And I think it's almost ridiculous for these people not to see the divide and how they're contributing to the divide.
They can afford to make sure there's a middle class. I don't think I could put it better. So I just have to ask you, because I can't control myself. You represent Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You're one of the only members of Congress saying this out loud. What do they think of you?
Well, here's what I'm telling them. I say, look, you are brilliant. You're doing innovations. But if you want to make sure that we have a unified country, then do some basic things. First of all, make sure everyone is participating in the benefits of technology, not that all the wealth is just going to very, very few individuals.
Yes.
Second, go out to rural America. I mean, I've been out to Paintsville, Kentucky, West Virginia, Jefferson, Iowa. We don't need to be outsourcing 200,000 tech jobs. Why aren't we partnering with rural communities to participate in the digital revolution? What's going on is there's this revolution and all of the wealth is going to a very few geographies. We want to have a unified country. We've got to expand tech opportunity for other people.
What do they say when you say that?
Well, they say, we're trying, et cetera. But I said, if you want to prevent a populist backlash in this country to what's happening, you need to be forward-looking. When I went to Beckley, West Virginia, you know who the most popular teacher there was? A Pakistani-American woman with a thick accent, but she was teaching computer science to coal miners' kids who were going to actually get jobs. We've got to create economic opportunities. We just had half the country vote against the coast. Why? Because they didn't see that they had economic opportunity in the new economy. Well, why don't we wake up? Henry Ford woke up when he had in the early 1900s, and he said, I'm going to double wages. By the way, the other thing is, who's going to buy the Instacart groceries?
It's such a good point. It's such a good. I wish more people were saying what you just said. I really think what you said is true, and thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I don't think it's a partisan issue.
It's certainly not a partisan issue. I'm sure there are many things we don't agree on. I'm certain of it, but I agree with every word you just said, and thank you for that.
I appreciate it, Tucker.
Thank you very much, Congressman.